Plenty of exiles are excited about Path of Exile 2. However, bits and pieces of this interconnected sequel to Path of Exile 1 excite players more than others. This video breaks down the complete collection of Path of Exile 2's most anticipated features in order of excitement and impact based on reactions from the greater Path of Exile 2 community. Please send this video to old exiles, new folks who just dropped off on the shores of Rayclast, or anyone who might play POE1 or POE2 in the future. The goal is to showcase POE2 and delight just about anyone who might give POE2 a shot when it comes out later this year or sometime in the first half of 2025. Remember, the beta begins on June 7th, 2024. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Without any contest, the biggest change from Path of Exile 1 to Path of Exile 2 is the huge gem system revamp. For the uninitiated, here's the rundown of the change. In Path of Exile 1, gems and their linked support gems are currently socketed in gear. This leads to plenty of confusion and need for finicking with gear and links when upgrading gear pieces for players new and old alike. In Path of Exile 2, skill gems go on gear and support gems go inside the skill gems themselves. To bolster this innovative concept further, items will have a standardized number of sockets and socket colors based on the item class and attribute requirements. For example, a chest can have, at max, 4 sockets, and if it's a pure dexterity suit of armor, it will always begin with 4 green sockets. This allows players to easily upgrade their gear without constantly worrying about shifting their skill and support gems over to new pieces. Of course, if you would like off-color gems in your sockets, chromatic orbs still exist. Additionally, there is a brand new gem screen to manage all of your skill and support gems. On this snazzy piece of UI, you can socket support gems into your skill gems, easily grasp your tooltip DPS, and see all of your character's abilities and potential upgrade paths in a single spot. But that's not all, exiles. There's also the introduction of gem cutting. Players rarely find gems now, and more commonly find uncut gems. When you find an uncut gem, you can cut it to open the gem cutting piece of UI. Herein, you can select any gem you're searching for regardless of your class. The only limiter is the level of the uncut gem, which determines which gems you may select. For example, a level 1 uncut gem might allow you to select Fireball, but not Comet. You might need a level 3 uncut gem to pick up the Comet skill. It's going to be a powerful new system. Here's a bit more insight from the community itself. Patchums says, easily the gem system. It's far more intuitive to have the sockets on the gems. Meta gems are much more intuitive to use than having those gems be supports as well. So that's something we didn't even touch on. Meta gems are a brand new thing in Path of Exile 2, wherein you link gems inside of these meta gems, such as an aura meta gem, which allows you to put all of your auras in a single gem and then click one button to activate all your auras. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you have any further ideas or excitement about the great big gem changes, please discuss them in the comments. Right behind the sweeping gem alterations, the next update people are insatiable and ready for is the complete power creep reset in Path of Exile 2. This chunk of excitement has myriad and similar vital ideas behind it, and for many of them, we'll truly need to play POE2 for ourselves to experience if they pan out. Power levels have been increasing in Path of Exile 1 for over a decade. With every single league, banger or not, new ways to build your character, increase their power, and annihilate screens and bosses alike hit the game. This means characters have built up a ton of permanent power increases throughout POE1's lifespan, even with league resets, to the point where a ton of content can be trivialized. In the eyes of some, this trivialization of content arrives too quickly. Of course, it should arrive all the same, but perhaps more must be invested or puzzled within your character to reach that level. Within that trivialization rests a ton of baggage. Some players hate being able to click one button once and clear an entire screen worth of monster packs. Others love it and play PoE because of it. A section of players enjoy insta-phasing bosses and showcasing their superiority and ingenious. Others view it as anticlimactic. Many enjoy utilizing the various interconnected and in some cases janky content types in POE1 to build an insane character. Others call all this stuff bloat. Of course, there are many people in between. What POE2 seeks to do and address this appears twofold. First and foremost, it is a trimming of some of the fat off POE1 systems and then condensing or redoing them completely. Second, due to the decrease in initial character power and more realistic character limits being in place, the overall game should be a tad less zoomy, or in other words, not allow for absolutely stupidly ridiculous characters. For example, you might not be able to shoot 1500 projectiles per second. Instead, you might be able to shoot 100 per second, which will accomplish the same thing, but look less ridiculous while doing so. Altogether, the power creep reset seeks to bring down character power at the outset, add more visual clarity to the game, and start the game sleek and clean. Lots of systems will still be present, but with a fresh coat of paint and some bodywork, they'll be more usable and intuitive than ever before. Here are a few comments from the POE2 community on this very topic. Nola Gamer says, the game won't be so complex and non-newbie friendly as POE1, but will still have depth to it. That is exactly what they are attempting to accomplish. Clueless 799 says, methodical fights is what he's excited for, or generally, the reset of power creep. Exactly, that's what's going on with this. The power creep is probably going to go away, but in a decade's time, we'll have to see what happens. Sturdy Guacamole says, combat shift and less speed creep is what he's excited for. A big reset button on player power is important. The game many people get addicted to is not the PoE I fell in love with. Ruthless helps, but I play with a family now, so it's out. Right, this is going to be divisive, but I really hope that GGG finds an excellent balance between resetting power and allowing people to break the game in the ways they enjoy. Do you disagree with anyone here? I know some people are not excited for a power reset and what appears to be slower combat. Sound off in the comments, exiles. Third, seriously, is the introduction of an entirely new way to play Path of Exile 2 in the form of WASD movement. As someone who probably won't use this and stick to classic controls, I still see it as an absolute win. We will continue to have a choice between mouse, WASD, and controllers. Introducing support for this type of play appeals to way more people than the POE1 community. With POE2, GGG is trying to bring as many new players as possible to the game and possibly the genre itself. This will accomplish that, and further support for other forms of play and access is only a good thing. Some people are skeptical about certain skills being designed for WASD movement or just playing better when using WASD. That might occur, right, but there are always optimal ways to play. At the end of the day, I truly believe it will come down to personal preference. This is something we need to accept as happening and be welcoming with it, as it's going to improve many existing players' game experience and introduce PoE to a whole new community of gamers. Many people excited for POE2 agree with this sentiment. Mr. D. Groot says, using WASD for movement is the most impactful change from POE1 to POE2. Strafe Hunter says, for me, I think it's POE2 completely throwing off the shackles of Diablo's RTS roots and fully embracing modern action gameplay and WASD movement. So these are established PoE players that are excited about this being added. What are your thoughts on this? I really think it's just a win and not a hindrance in any way. Now, right before we move to the next Titanic update in the list, I would like to ask, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. I'm consciously ramping up videos like this, working on improving the quality, and aiming to be the POE2 content creator as we near its June 7th, 2024 closed beta. Thank you for the consideration and for watching this video. Now, let's get back to it. Next up, the community is giddy to finally have a real reason to use multiple weapon sets, with the innovation of slightly modified passive trees being tied to each weapon set your character wields and therefore skills they might be using. In POE1, you have your one passive skill tree, regardless of the weapons you are using. People mostly use a second weapon set to level up gems, to sell, or try and corrupt and get to level 21 and max quality. In POE2, weapon sets will actually be used for in-game content. In this next generation ARPG, you will be able to match one skill tree to your first weapon set and the skills on it, and a second, slightly modified version of your passive skill tree to your second weapon set and the skills it holds. For example, this means you can focus on fire damage on your skill tree with your first weapon set on a sorceress, which is a staff. Then, when you swap to your dual wands and your second weapon set, you can focus on lightning on your skill tree. The first set uses fireball and the second uses arc. Both have unique skill trees because they're in different weapon sets. Additionally, you need not even weapon swap manually in POE2. If you use Fireball, it'll automatically use the weapon set 1, and when you fire off some arcs, you will swap immediately to weapon set 2. The tech is here. I'm giddy weapon swapping is going to be real and useful. The use cases are going to be vast, and this upgrade and change alone will bring a ton more customization to the table. Here are some further excited POE2 players. Fury of Blood says the weapon skill swap system, allowing you to have 2 diverse skill trees with limitations for different skills you want to run, is the most impactful change about POE2. And then Sir Jellybean9026 says he is excited that it is a whole new playground with brand new classes and ascendancies coupled with the auto weapon swap mechanic. The incredible bosses we've seen so far too is exciting, and it makes him very excited to see what the end game holds. I am with you, Sir Jellybean9026. All right, moving on now. One of the gargantuan gripes with Path of Exile 1 has always been its tedious initial crafting system with alterations and the like, alongside the new forms of crafting seen as bloat by many. Well, with Path of Exile 2, there's a grand item reset and structural changes to crafting beginning from the outset. Firstly, reroll currency is being removed in some cases and completely changed in others. This will lead to a massive change in how we craft items in PoE. For example, Orbs of Alteration, the orb that allows you to reroll a magic item, will be gone. This means no more spamming 2,000 plus alterations on a blue item to get the perfect prefix and suffix before regaling and praying to get another good mod. Additionally, Chaos Orbs now remove a mod and then add a mod, becoming an Orb of Annulment and an Exalted Orb in a single item. Plus, Orbs of Fusing are no more. Gems come linked, so the task will be finding your 6th linked gem and earning it, not spamming 1,500 plus Orbs of Fusing on a 6th link body armor or 2-hander to get the 6th link you need. On top of all of this, GGG has confirmed there will be drastic changes to the way items drop. More on this is coming, but as a hint, Jonathan said they would be focusing on quality of items and their mods instead of quantity. Likely, this means the days of 5,000 plus items cluttering your screen are gone. Loot filters will be used more strategically, hopefully, and not just be ways to avoid crashing the game entirely. One ask I have here, and this is an ask and not a confirmation, is the dropping of certain items identified. This would further help us know what we would like to pick up and what we don't want to grab. However, I have an ill feeling about the weight of the Wisdom Scroll and identification process being too important to GGG. Here is one lengthy community opinion on the matter. Not Some Beans simply says, I think removing the reroll currencies, alterations, scours, chaos orbs are functionally removed and replaced with annul plus exalt will have a huge impact on our relationship with items on the floor. Right now, every time you reroll an item with a Chaos Orb, or Essence, Harvest, Fossils, etc., or Alteration, you functionally have picked up another copy of that base off the floor, so there is very little value in items on the floor apart from their extremely limited value as a crafting base. It sounds like once an item is rare in POE2, it will remain that way, and you can't really radically change its modifiers without great cost. This changes each base type we find on the floor into a new pull of the crafting slot machine. So each item on the floor individually represents a greater proportion of the crafting potential in the game than they currently do. You may find a rare item that is functionally worthless as is, but has great potential if one or two of its mods were different. Hitting that roll with a Chaos Orb will feel great, but it also won't feel terrible if you probably miss. And this is one thing I didn't even touch on. Orbs of Scouring are gone, so once an item is magic, once it is rare, it's staying that way. And it won't even have a big effect just on equipment and gear, but imagine the mapping system and crafting maps that way. Once you hit a mod on a map that you don't want, what happens? Do you have to expend currency to try to get rid of it? Or are you attempting to fight against this mod that you would think would brick your build, but you really need to complete this map, so you're gonna go at it? Wild stuff, and that's kind of exciting to a player like me. So I'm in total agreement with Not Some Beans. How about you? Before we arrive at the final biggest update between POE1 and POE2, I've tied together a long list of honorable mentions. These are changes that are meaningful, but didn't spark the discussion, excitement, or in some cases, outrage of everything else in this video. Time for some rapid fire. The honorable mentions are boss fights resetting on death, no more flask piano or flasks that need to be up at all times, the focus on individual characters and their reactions to the environment and story, the encouragement of combos and comboing skills, the dodge roll, the addition of Spirit as a resource, and finally, the swap of Chris Wilson being the face of Path of Exile 2 to Jonathan Rogers and Mark Roberts being the faces of Path of Exile 2. Of course, we end the list with the absolute largest outward-facing change between games. It's the game and campaign itself. Path of Exile 2 is not Path of Exile 1. It's a completely new game with a new story, a new campaign, and a new set of endgame maps and systems we get to experience all together for the first time. Both of these ARPGs are going to be run and updated concurrently. Path of Exile 2 and 1 League shall be staggered, but continue releasing for the foreseeable future. All MTX will be shared between them, and you should even be able to chat with POE1 players while playing POE2. 6 of the POE1 classes are porting over, albeit with animation, story, and graphical upgrades, and a bunch, as in the majority of POE1 leagues, will be present and updated for POE2. Besides that, well, they're going to be different games entirely. We'll need to learn a brand new campaign, how to run through it, how to build an optimal character with a set of 36 ascendancy classes and dynamic skill trees. We'll be fighting incredibly in-depth bosses, with designs reminiscent of POE1 pinnacle bosses in almost every single area of POE2. Our characters will be talking constantly, taking in the world, reacting to other characters, and reacting to the skills we use. We get to take on new skill gems, a suite of brand new items and weapons. Oh, and we are able to turn into a bear. Honestly, the biggest change, my fellow exiles, is that Path of Exile 2 is a new game. In GGG's own words, Path of Exile 2 is a next-generation action RPG created by Grinding Gear Games. Set years after the original Path of Exile, you will return to the dark world of Rayclast and seek to end the corruption that is spreading. Path of Exile 2 is a free-to-play, online multiplayer game with co-op for up to 6 players. Path of Exile 2 is a separate game to the original Path of Exile. We will continue to offer expansions for both games going forward. They are completely free to play and will never be pay to win. Purchases are shared between the two games. If Grinding Gear Games is able to deliver on this, everyone, we will be eating well for countless years. I sincerely believe they can. But what did you think, exiles of YouTube? What is the most impactful change happening from Path of Exile 1 to Path of Exile 2? Did I not include your biggest update in this list? Let me and everyone else know in the comments. Anyways, that's all for this video. Talamoana, exiles.